The man just wanted to finish his dinner in peace. He looked up at the punk in front of him and calmly warned him not to bother him. But the guy didn't take it seriously. He stopped what he was doing and moved over to sit beside the man. He even lowered his voice and threatened him, "If you want to walk out of this place alive, stay out of it." What he didn't know was that this ordinary-looking middle-aged man was the last person he should have messed with. The man's name was Robert. At first, he simply tried to calmly warn off Draven and his crew.
Whatever it is that you and your friends do, please do it somewhere else.
Impatient, Draven reached out, ready to teach Robert a lesson. But in the very next second, everything changed. Staring at the reckless punk, Robert firmly locked onto Draven's wrist. He precisely pressed down on his median nerve. Robert warned him in a low voice, "If I push just a little harder, you'll lose control right here in front of everyone." Draven instantly realized this wasn't a bluff. Panicked, he immediately did exactly as Robert told him. He hurriedly ordered all his men out of the restaurant. Then Robert told him to hand over his gun. Facing a man with icy eyes and flawless control, Draven didn't dare hesitate. He handed it over without a word. In the end, he fled the restaurant in humiliation. As it turned out, Robert was a top-tier CIA operative. To help a retired woman named Dale recover her stolen pension, $360,000 taken by cyber hackers, Robert began following the trail to track down the people behind it. Alone, Robert broke into a vineyard filled with drugs and stacks of dirty money. By the time the crime boss got the call and rushed over, it was already too late. The bodies of his men were scattered all over the grounds. Gripping his weapon, Robert carefully stepped into the underground wine cellar. The next second, the crime boss froze. Robert was sitting there calmly, as if he had been waiting for him. Two gunmen stood beside him, weapons aimed straight at Robert. With guns pointed at him, Robert showed no fear. He slowly polished the ring on his finger. The crime boss sneered arrogantly.
A parte il fatto che stai a pochi metri da quello che stai cercando.
Robert glanced down at his watch and calmly started the countdown.
That's what you have to decide your fate. 9 seconds.
When the countdown ended, Robert struck. Fast and clean. Before anyone could react, everyone around him dropped to the ground. The wounded crime boss crawled desperately across the floor. Robert calmly picked up a shotgun from the ground. He tapped it against the floor as he slowly walked behind him. Then, with a single shot, he ended it. Robert picked up the car keys, slung his backpack over his shoulder, and turned to leave. Just as he stepped outside, he noticed someone sitting in the car. He chose not to continue the violence. He left behind only one sentence.
Resta in macchina.
Then he turned and walked away. A gunshot suddenly rang out behind him. Robert spun around and instantly realized the truth. The one who shot him was the very boy he had just spared. Watching the boy run away, Robert didn't chase him. A wave of intense pain surged through his body. Robert staggered a few steps. For the first time, he felt like he had truly reached his limit. His will cracked just for a moment, but reason quickly took control again. He boarded a ferry and headed to a nearby island. This time, though, he couldn't make it all the way. On a roadside on the island, he finally collapsed unconscious. Fortunately, not long after, a patrolling officer named Gio found him lying by the road. Seeing the gunshot wound, Gio didn't hesitate. He rushed Robert straight to the local hospital. Dr. Enzo quickly removed the bullet from Robert's back. He told Gio that the bullet had entered from behind and damaged Robert's internal organs.
Tu mi hai portato un uomo che è caduto, d'accordo?
The surgery was a success. Not long after, Robert slowly regained consciousness. Luckily, after he lost consciousness, he was saved by kind-hearted people. Robert had been unconscious for 2 full days. When he finally opened his eyes, he saw his backpack sitting safely on the chair beside his bed. A few days later, Robert was able to get out of bed. Out of curiosity, he began walking around the town with a cane. The quiet streets and friendly neighbors stirred something in him. For the first time since retiring, Robert considered settling down here. That night, Robert picked up his phone and called the FBI. He told the operator everything about the drugs hidden in the vineyard. After hanging up, he immediately removed the SIM card. He left behind nothing that could be traced. Then, as usual, he went downstairs for a walk. But as he passed the fish shop he always went to, he noticed several unfamiliar faces standing outside. Robert slowed his steps. Years of experience told him something was wrong. It turned out the island's biker gang was inside the shop, collecting protection money with their men. Soon the sounds of beating echoed from inside, along with the fish shop owner's muffled screams. Of a beating, Robert stood where he was, forcing himself to suppress the anger boiling inside him. A moment later, the noise suddenly stopped. Robert slowly turned his head, carefully memorizing every arrogant face. Looking at the fish shop owner, Robert said nothing. But from that moment on, those men were already marked in his mind. Elsewhere, after collecting the protection money, Draven led his men to where his brother was. His brother was Vincent, the island's infamous mafia boss. Vincent had recently set his sights on a real estate complex on the island. He planned to buy it out, level the entire area, and rebuild it into a resort with an underground casino. Unfortunately, the property owner on the other side had no intention of cooperating. Vincent didn't say another word. He simply stood up and walked out of the building. The very next second, his bedridden, paralyzed father was hanged outside the window. The old man dangled in midair. Vincent coldly threw out a single line. With that, Vincent got into his car and drove away. That same night, Dr. Enzo checked on him again. His wounds were healing well. Robert looked at the doctor who had taken care of him for days. He couldn't help but ask a question. "Why didn't you call the police when you saw I'd been shot?" Enzo smiled softly, his tone calm. He explained what happened earlier. When Robert first woke up, Enzo had asked him a question. Was he a good man or a bad man? Robert's answer was simple. "I don't know."
Only a good man would have said that.
Meanwhile, the clues Robert provided led the FBI to a shocking discovery. They uncovered a massive stash of Captagon at the vineyard.
Synthetic amphetamine, ISIS fighters use it. Amps them up for days.
To prevent the drugs from being smuggled out of the country and to eliminate the threat to national security, Agent Emma quickly took action. She locked onto the mysterious man who had called in the tip. She wanted more information, more answers, more secrets hidden beneath the surface. As his body slowly recovered day by day, Robert packed his bags, preparing to leave the island. But as he reached the town square, a piercing roar tore through the air. The next second, a crowd began sprinting in the same direction. Robert followed them. When he arrived, the fish shop was already engulfed in raging flames. The owner sat collapsed on the ground, screaming at the fire. It was his life savings and his only means of survival. Standing outside the crowd, Robert watched in silence. At that moment, the thought of leaving vanished completely. He turned away and walked alone into the church. From that moment on, he was no longer just a bystander. He decided these people would pay for everything they had done. Meanwhile, Gio, the police officer who once saved Robert's life, spotted a familiar suspicious car while reviewing surveillance footage. It was the same vehicle parked outside the fish shop on the day of the fire. Sensing something was wrong, Gio immediately called his superior to trace the vehicle's background. The next day, he went to his daughter's school to pick her up, but he was told she had already been taken. In an instant, Gio realized something was terribly wrong. He rushed home like a madman. The moment he reached the door, heartbreaking screams came from inside the house. It turned out the local police department had long been infiltrated by the mafia boss Vincent. To stop Gio from investigating any further, Vincent had sent men to destroy his home. Gio burst inside and saw two gang members in the living room. One of them was holding his wife and daughter tightly in his arms. Just as Gio tried to rush forward, he was ambushed from behind. The next second, Draven stepped out. He brutally beat Gio as he lay helpless on the floor. Before leaving, Draven issued a cold warning.
La prossima volta, a bambina. Si fa male, capito?
Severely injured, Gio was taken to the clinic. As Dr. Enzo treated his wounds, Robert happened to witness the scene. It was also here that Robert learned from Enzo that Draven and his men were notoriously brutal. That night, Gio and his family were having dinner at a restaurant. Draven showed up again, deliberately causing trouble in public. Not wanting to expose himself, Robert intervened calmly and forced Draven to leave. As they walked away, Robert quietly took Draven's handgun and followed them from a distance. Draven replayed the scene over and over in his mind. Furious, he called his men, looking for a chance to deal with Robert. Suddenly, a car burst out of the darkness. Before anyone could react, the man in front was slammed straight into a wall. The two men inside the car had already been taken out by Robert. Before Draven could even process what was happening, Robert appeared behind him and smashed the last thug to the ground with a wine bottle. Draven panicked. As he pulled out a knife to fight back, Robert remained calm. He raised his hands with a faint smile. With a sharp twist and a loud crack, Draven's arm snapped. Within moments, the once arrogant gang leader was completely finished. But it wasn't over yet. As Draven's older brother, Vincent would never let his death go unanswered. Suppressing his rage, Vincent held a funeral for his brother. When the news spread, the local police chief arrived immediately. But he wasn't there to mourn. In the heavy atmosphere, the chief urged Vincent to put revenge aside. He told him business came first and warned him to stop selling drugs to the villagers. Having just lost his brother, Vincent's face darkened instantly. Vincent finally snapped and coldly warned him on the spot.
Frate m'ha morto e tu stai qua a parlare stronzate. O sei diventato scemo.
The police chief, who had come alone, still failed to realize the danger closing in. Losing patience, he pointed back at Vincent and replied coldly.
Tu ti sei scordato chi sei? Barbaro eri.
After saying that, he turned to leave. Those words completely enraged Vincent. Without another word, Vincent pulled out a knife and stabbed straight through the chief's hand. The next second, his men drew their blades and severed the hand completely. Vincent stood calmly to the side, as if handling a business transaction. He ordered the severed hand placed in an ice bucket and sent it to the hospital, along with the barely alive chief. Before leaving, he leaned down and whispered coldly into the chief's ear.
Prossima volta ti taglia capo, lasciami discorrere i nipoti.
After calming down, Vincent suddenly remembered something else the chief had mentioned. A female intelligence agent had just taken down one of his hidden drug labs. At the same time, Emma received a call from Robert. That call saved her life. The next second, Emma's car exploded. The violent shockwave threw her hard to the ground. Badly injured, Emma was rushed to the hospital. As time passed, Vincent still couldn't identify the killer. Driven by vengeance, he lost all patience and kidnapped Gio's family. He dragged Gio to the center of the town square. In front of all the residents, Vincent raised his gun and shouted,
Portatemi chi l'ha ucciso e vi ricompenserò!
The square fell into dead silence. No one dared to step forward. Vincent's expression darkened. The next second, a gunshot rang out, blowing off one of Gio's ears. A furious roar echoed from behind a wall.
It's me you want. I killed your brother.
Robert slowly stepped into view, unable to watch the townspeople suffer. He explained that he only warned Vincent's brother not to hurt the villagers, but Draven had refused to listen. Vincent threatened Gio's life and ordered Robert to throw his gun on the ground. Seeing his brother's killer standing right in front of him, Vincent rushed forward. He raised his gun. The dark barrel pointed straight at Robert's head. Just as he was about to pull the trigger, a gunshot rang out and stopped Vincent cold. It was Dr. Enzo. He had stepped forward and shouted at Vincent's men to release Gio's wife. With the doctor taking the lead, the long-oppressed residents raised their phones. One by one, they aimed their cameras at Vincent, ready to record his crimes. Seeing the situation spiral out of control, Vincent's men tried to stop him. With no other choice, Vincent backed down. But before leaving, he issued one final threat. After that, he got into the car and drove away. But Robert wasn't going to give him that time. That very night, Robert quietly infiltrated the area outside Vincent's castle. A patrolling guard heard a noise and instinctively went to investigate. Finding nothing, he assumed it was a false alarm and reached for a cigarette. The next second, Robert appeared behind him and subdued him instantly. Inside the building, 3 men were playing cards, completely unaware of the danger. Suddenly, the lights went out. One of them stood up to check what was happening outside. The moment he turned around, Robert appeared and dropped him with a single shot. The remaining 2 were taken down just as quickly. In the dining hall, a guard was reviewing the security monitors. The next second, Robert was already behind him. With one strike, the baton pierced his throat. The guard died instantly. As Vincent slept, something dripping onto his face startled him awake. Curious, he touched it with his fingers and brought them to his nose. In an instant, he knew something was terribly wrong. The glass above shattered from a heavy impact. Vincent dove aside just in time. When he looked up, he saw one of his most trusted men hanging from the ceiling. That was when true fear finally set in. Ignoring the shattered glass under his feet, Vincent grabbed his gun and rushed downstairs. He shouted the guards' names again and again. No one answered. When he realized every guard was dead, fear flooded his entire body. Hearing a noise, he fired wildly in every direction. But before he could even turn around, Robert struck. Vincent collapsed instantly. Sometime later, Vincent slowly regained consciousness. He found himself tightly bound to a pillar with steel wire. His mouth was filled with the very drugs he once sold. Even then, he continued to threaten Robert. Robert remained unmoved. He removed Vincent's restraints, but he didn't kill him. Instead, he simply watched as Vincent tried to escape, step by step. Outside, the townspeople were joyfully celebrating their annual festival. Vincent staggered out of the castle, desperately hoping someone would save him. Even when he was struck by a car, no one dared to help. In the end, Robert forced him, step by step, into a container. Fireworks lit up the sky, and at that exact moment, Vincent died. Days passed. Everyone who had colluded with Vincent was arrested. The beautiful town finally returned to peace. Robert went to the hospital to visit Emma. Emma thanked him sincerely for saving her life. Robert handed her the $360,000 taken from the vineyard. Then he explained everything to help a retired woman named Dale recover her pension stolen by cyber hackers, all because she once gave him a ride. After saying this, Robert prepared to leave the room. Emma still didn't understand why he would go that far.
You will.
In the end, after fully recovering, Emma returned the money to the Dale couple. Once unable to settle down because of finances, the elderly couple could finally live out their remaining years in peace. Back at the CIA, Emma received an anonymous package. Inside, she found her mother's notebook and a handwritten note. "Your mother would be proud of you." It turned out Emma was the daughter of one of Robert's old friends. That was why he trusted her with everything about the vineyard. Robert chose to settle down in the town. Watching the smiling faces of the residents, he finally showed a long-lost smile. Perhaps in that moment, he felt once again the warmth and comfort his friends had brought into his life.